home in the harmony of the forest. In the dense and lush mountains of northeastern India lived a small community of the Naga tribe, who had since time immemorial learned to live in harmony with nature. To them, the forest was not simply a place for hunting or resources, but a vast territory inhabited by ancient spirits and creatures that guarded the essence of life itself. They believed that every tree, every stream, and every animal had a purpose in the sacred cycle of existence. In the midst of this tribe lived Ranfan, a respected hunter known for his skill in the forest. His life was intrinsically connected with the rhythms of the forest, and from a young age, he had learned from his father how to move silently, track prey, and respect the limits that nature imposed. Unlike other hunters, Ranfan didn't just seek food. His relationship with the forest was spiritual. He knew that not all creatures could be hunted, that some were imbued with the spirits of the forest, and those creatures deserved special reverence. However, the centerpiece of Ranfan's life was not just his connection to nature, but his love for Arena, his wife. Arena not only shared the same devotion to the forest, but she had a special connection with plants. She was known throughout the village for her healing abilities. The plants seemed to speak to her, and thanks to that gift, she had cured many villagers of their ailments. For Ranfan, Arena was the perfect balance between the earthly and the spiritual. Together, they lived a quiet life in perfect harmony with the forest and their tribe. However, this balance would not last forever. A tragedy was about to shake Ranfan's world, a tragedy that would lead him to face a force no other person in the village had dared to challenge. Karyang, the legendary tiger. The roar of the beast. Karyang was not simply a tiger, he was a creature shrouded in legend, known for his immense strength and mysterious ability to vanish into the forest without a trace. It was said that Karyang was not just a predator, but a guardian of the spirits of the forest. The stories told of how the tiger was an extension of the very spirits that protected the land, and any attempt to hunt him ended in disaster. The hunters who had gone after him never returned, and their bodies were never found. Karyang, in his role as guardian, acted only when the balance of the forest was threatened. One afternoon, while Ranfan was on a distant hunt, Arena went into the forest. She did not fear the forest or the creatures that inhabited it, for she knew their secrets and their language. She ventured to the outskirts of the village, near the river, where the rarest medicinal plants grew under the shade of the oldest trees. But in her search, unbeknownst to her, she had crossed into forbidden territory, one that Karyang guarded fiercely. The tiger's roar shook the air. The villagers heard the terrifying sound from afar and rushed to the scene of the attack. But when they arrived, they found Arena already lifeless, her body torn apart by Karyang's claws. The tiger, as he always did, had disappeared back into the depths of the forest, leaving behind only death and destruction. Ranfan returned that same night. Upon arriving at the village, he saw the somber faces of the villagers and knew, before anyone spoke, that something terrible had happened. When they told him what had happened, Ranfan's world crumbled. Arena, his beloved wife, had been taken by the guardian of the forest. His first instinct was to seek revenge. Karyang had to pay for what he had done, and Ranfan swore he would hunt him down no matter the cost. The counsel of Laksu the Wise. Though his heart burned with rage, Ranfan knew that hunting Karyang would not be like hunting any other beast in the forest. Karyang was not just a tiger, he was a sacred creature, linked to the spirits of the forest. If he tried to face him without preparation, he would end up like the other hunters who had tried to challenge the guardian before him, dead or disappeared. So, before embarking on his mission, he decided to seek the counsel of Laksu, the village elder. Laksu was known for his deep knowledge of the spirits and for having lived more than 100 seasons. It was said that he could communicate with the spirits of the forest, and that he knew secrets that others didn't even dare mention. When Ranfan arrived at his hut, Laksu greeted him with a serious look. He knew why he had come. "I understand your pain, Ranfan," Laksu said with his trembling but firm voice. "But you must know that Karyang is not an ordinary tiger. He is the guardian of the spirits of the forest, and his existence is part of the balance we have respected for generations. If you challenge him without the favor of the spirits, your death is assured." Ranfan, though enraged by Irina's death, knew that Laksu's words were true. He couldn't face a creature linked to the spirits without first gaining their blessing. "Tell me what I must do, Laksu. I'll do whatever it takes to avenge Irina's death," Ranfan said with determination in his voice. Laksu looked at him in silence for a few moments before speaking. "If you are determined, then you must perform the ritual of the spirits in the sacred clearing," the elder explained. "You must offer something you deeply love, something that symbolizes your connection with Irina and the spirits. Only then will the spirits of the forest allow you to approach Karyang." Ranfan knew that the most valuable thing he had was the silver bracelet Irina had always worn on her wrist, a gift he had given her on their wedding day. He decided that this would be his offering to the spirits. The journey to the spirits' clearing. The spirits' clearing was a sacred place hidden deep in the forest, far from any path known to the hunters. It was said to be a place where humans could meet the spirits of the forest under the light of the full moon. However, those who ventured into the clearing without proper preparation or respect never returned. The journey to the clearing was long and difficult. Ranfan walked for 3 days and 3 nights, following the ancient signs his father had taught him when he was a child. Along the way, he faced the dangers of the forest. Steep terrain, wild creatures, and above all, the growing sensation that the eyes of the forest were constantly watching him. But none of that stopped him. His pain and desire for revenge were too strong. Finally, on the 3rd day, Ranfan arrived at the spirits' clearing. The place was as awe-inspiring as the legends described. The clearing was bathed in the silver light of the moon, and in its center was a large flat stone that served as an altar. The air was dense, charged with spiritual energy, and Ranfan felt the spirits of the forest watching him from the shadows. Carefully, he placed Irina's bracelet on the stone, and kneeling before the altar, began to recite the sacred words that Laksu had taught him. As he spoke, the wind began to blow harder, and the whispers of the spirits filled the air. Ranfan felt a powerful presence around him, as if the forest itself was speaking to him. After what seemed like an eternity, the wind calmed. The presence of the spirits lingered for a few seconds longer before fading away. Ranfan knew what that meant. His offering had been accepted, and the spirits had given him their blessing to face Karyang. Ranfan's journey to the sacred clearing. Every step Ranfan took in the dense forest was heavier than the last. As he walked toward the spirits' clearing, his thoughts were flooded with memories of Irina, her soft laughter, the way her eyes lit up when she talked about plants, her warmth and constant presence. The pain of her loss consumed him, but it also motivated him to continue his journey. He knew that facing Karyang, the guardian of the forest who had taken his beloved's life, would not be an easy task. This was not just a tiger, it was a creature protected by the spirits. And now Ranfan was on a mission both physical and spiritual. The journey to the clearing was long and filled with challenges. The forests grew darker as he advanced, and the creatures moving in the shadows seemed to be watching his every move. But what disturbed Ranfan the most were not the visible dangers of the forest, but the intangible presence of the spirits. He knew that every step was being observed, every decision judged. This journey was not just a quest for revenge, but a test to prove if he was worthy of facing the forest's guardian. The nights were lonely and cold. Ranfan lit small fires to keep warm, but he couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows around him moved with a life of their own. Often he dreamed of Irina, and those dreams filled him with a mixture of comfort and pain. He would see her in front of him, smiling as she always did, but every time he tried to approach her, she would fade into the air, like a ghost carried away by the wind. Finally, after 3 long days of walking, he reached the spirits' clearing. The spirits' clearing. The clearing was bathed in the silver light of the full moon. The place was both beautiful and terrifying. An open space surrounded by ancient trees, whose trunks were as thick as houses. In the center of the clearing was a large, flat stone that the Naga used as an altar to offer sacrifices to the spirits. The air was different here, denser, charged with an energy that seemed to come from the very ground. The whispers of the wind through the leaves created a sound that resembled distant voices, as if the spirits were already present, watching what was about to happen. Ranfan knelt before the altar, holding in his hands the silver bracelet that belonged to Arena. This bracelet was his most cherished memory, the symbol of his love for her. As he held it, he felt a deep sadness, but also a renewed strength. This was the last bond he had with Arena, and now it would be his offering to the spirits. With trembling hands, he placed the bracelet on the stone and began to recite the sacred words that Laksu, the village elder, had taught him. The words were ancient, passed down from generation to generation among the Naga, and it was said that they had the power to invoke the presence of the forest spirits. As he recited the ritual, the wind began to blow harder, and the shadows of the forest seemed to lengthen, enveloping the clearing. Ranfan felt a powerful presence around him, as if the invisible forces of the forest were watching him and judging his offering. His heart pounded, and for a moment he thought he would not be accepted. But then, the wind calmed, and a deep silence fell over the clearing. The spirits had accepted his offering. Ranfan remained kneeling for a moment longer, feeling a mixture of relief and fear. He knew what this meant. He now had permission to hunt Karyang. But he also understood that this was not the end of his journey, but only the beginning of the true test. The hunt for Karyang. With the blessing of the spirits, Ranfan rose from the altar and set off on his journey to find Karyang. He knew that finding the tiger would not be easy, as Karyang was not a mere creature of the forest, but a mythical beast that had existed for generations, protected by the spirits and the forest itself. Karyang could move unseen, and his tracks would vanish into the air as if they had never been there. For several days, Ranfan followed barely perceptible tracks. A broken branch here, a faint trail of blood there. Each day took him deeper into the forest, to places where no hunter dared to go. The shadows grew darker and the air heavier, as if the forest itself was trying to stop him. But Ranfan did not stop. The image of Arena and the pain of her loss drove him to keep going. Finally, one afternoon, Ranfan saw Karyang's tracks in the damp earth. He knew the tiger was near. His heart pounded and his body tensed in anticipation. This was the moment he had been waiting for. Karyang, the beast who had taken his wife's life, was finally within reach. The wind blew through the trees, and in that moment he heard it. Karyang's roar echoed throughout the forest, filling the air with a deep and terrifying sound. The tiger was near. The confrontation with Karyang. Ranfan followed the sound of the roar until he reached a dark cave hidden among the roots of a great tree. He knew Karyang was inside, waiting. With his heart pounding, he adjusted his spear and entered the cave, knowing that the confrontation he had long awaited was about to begin. The inside of the cave was dark and cold, and the air was filled with a pungent smell that sharpened Ranfan's senses even more. As he cautiously advanced, he heard a faint whisper in the shadows, a sound that could only belong to Karyang. The tiger, with its huge eyes glowing in the dim light, watched Ranfan's every move. It was larger and more imposing than the legends said. Its eyes radiated a deep intelligence, a cunning that went beyond that of a mere animal. This was the guardian of the forest, and Ranfan knew this would not be a simple battle of strength. Karyang launched the first attack with incredible speed. Ranfan barely had time to react, dodging the huge claws coming toward him. The tiger's roar shook the walls of the cave, and Ranfan felt the vibration in his chest. He was facing a formidable enemy, but he did not back down. The fight was fierce. Karyang attacked with inhuman fury, and with each blow Ranfan dodged, he tried to find a weakness in the beast. But the tiger was fast, agile, and every move it made seemed blessed by the spirits of the forest. Ranfan knew he could not defeat Karyang with physical strength alone. He needed something more. As Karyang prepared to launch another attack, Ranfan remembered Laksu's words. "Respect the beast, and the beast will respect you." Ranfan dropped his spear and knelt on the cave floor, showing a gesture of respect to the tiger. Karyang paused, watching him. Its eyes remained fixed on Ranfan, but the fury in its gaze began to fade. In that moment, Karyang understood. Ranfan was not an ordinary hunter. He was a man who had come to restore balance, not just to seek revenge. Karyang slowly backed away, its eyes still fixed on Ranfan, and then disappeared into the darkness of the cave. The battle was over, not with death, but with mutual respect. Ranfan's return. Ranfan left the cave with a sense of relief and peace. He had faced Karyang, but he had not killed him. He knew that Arena's death could not be undone, but he had found a way to restore balance. The spirits of the forest had been respected, and the sacred cycle of life continued. When Ranfan returned to the village, the villagers greeted him with astonishment and relief. For many, the fact that Ranfan had returned alive was already a sign of his triumph. However, what surprised them most was that he carried no trophy, no trace of the bloody victory they had expected. Instead of a celebration, Ranfan brought with him a different story, one of respect for the spirits of the forest and the balance he, though blinded by pain, had learned to restore. When the village elders gathered to hear what had happened, Ranfan told them of his encounter with Karyang, but he did not describe it as a battle between hunter and beast, but as a meeting between two guardians, one human and one spiritual. Karyang had not been defeated in the traditional sense, but he had been faced with the respect and understanding Ranfan had learned on his journey. The elders understood the depth of his story. They knew that Arena's spirit now lived in the forest, just as Karyang did, and that Ranfan had restored the balance between humans and the spirits that inhabited the trees, the wind, and the creatures of the forest. The hunter had not sought only revenge, but justice, and in the end, he had found peace, the legacy of Ranfan. As the years passed, Ranfan's story became a legend among the Naga. Children grew up hearing the story of the hunter, who had not only faced the feared guardian of the forest, but had learned to respect him. The spirit's clearing became an even more sacred place for the village, and every full moon, the villagers brought offerings to the spirits of the forest to ensure that balance was maintained. Ranfan lived the rest of his days with a serenity few understood. He knew he had made peace with the spirits of the forest, and though the pain of losing Arena never fully faded, he found comfort in knowing that her spirit was at peace, protected by the same forest they had shared. Every time he passed the place where she had been taken by Karyang, Ranfan felt her presence in the wind, in the leaves that whispered softly, as if reminding him that she had never truly left. Ranfan's legacy was not that of a man who had won a great battle, but of a man who had learned the true essence of life and death, and had restored the sacred balance between humans and the spirits of the forest. The story of Ranfan the Brave takes us on a journey not only of vengeance, but of understanding, redemption, and balance. At first, the tragedy that triggers the action seems to be the main driving force. Arena's death at the hands of Karyang is a devastating blow that fills Ranfan's heart with rage. In his initial quest, the desire for revenge seems to be the only way to overcome the pain he feels. However, as the story progresses, the tone shifts, showing us that the true purpose of his journey is not to destroy, but to restore the balance between the world of men and the spirits of the forest. The importance of respecting the sacred. One of the central themes of the story is respect for the sacred, symbolized by Karyang, the guardian tiger of the spirits. From the beginning, we are taught that Karyang is not simply a fearsome beast, but a protector of the natural balance. This guardian does not act out of malice, but as an extension of the spirits of the forest, punishing those who break the established rules. By attempting to hunt him without considering this spiritual aspect, Ranfan risked falling into the same trap as so many other hunters who had not understood the true nature of Karyang. The moral that can be drawn from this lesson is that we must learn to respect forces we do not fully understand. In the modern world, this could be interpreted as a call to respect nature, to recognize that we are not the absolute owners of the world we inhabit, but its caretakers. We must treat all forms of life with respect and understand that there are larger balances than we can perceive. The power of forgiveness and reconciliation. Another important aspect is Ranfan's emotional evolution. Initially driven by the desire for revenge, he ultimately understands that the true path to peace is not through Karyang's destruction, but through mutual respect. By kneeling and showing respect to the tiger, he demonstrates that he has learned a valuable lesson about the importance of reconciliation and forgiveness. Karyang is not a simple enemy, but a symbol of a higher power that maintains the balance between worlds. The lesson here is that true courage lies not in revenge, but in the ability to find peace and balance through forgiveness. Sometimes, the greatest act of bravery is not physical combat, but the ability to overcome hatred and resentment. In the end, Ranfan restores balance not through the death of his enemy, but through understanding and respect for nature and the spirits. The connection with the cycle of life. Finally, Ranfan's story emphasizes the importance of recognizing that we are all part of a larger cycle. Arena's death is painful and tragic, but in the end, both she and Karyang are part of a natural cycle that cannot be broken. The spirits of the forest play a crucial role in this cycle, and their intervention in Ranfan's life teaches him that not everything can be controlled or foreseen. The cycle of life and death is something that must be accepted, not feared. Ranfan learns that Arena's death does not mean her complete disappearance. Her spirit remains present in the forest, in the balance she and Karyang protected. In the end, the story reminds us that we must learn to accept the losses and changes in our lives, recognizing that they are part of a natural cycle of which we are all a part. Thank you for joining us on this amazing story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a comment. Let us know which part touched you the most, or what story you'd like us to tell next. Remember to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any episodes full of magic and adventure. Give it a like if you loved the story, and share the video with your friends so they can enjoy these unforgettable tales too. See you in the next story.